kind of just answer this question, but it's on love and soulmates. Is there such a thing as a soulmate? And is there something we should try to find? I have a wonderful husband of many years with grown children, but I feel like there's something missing, and I want to find my true soulmate. Is this just a fantasy? Well, I answered it. Our soulmate is ourself. Right? It truly is. It's that hole in that flute. And yet sometimes the soulmate can show up, that hole in the flute, you can see that reflected in another person. And they see it reflected in you, and somehow we connect together. That's the connection. I mean, that's my connection with Eckhart. Truly. It's, wow. It's the one person that I could truly see myself reflected, because we're all reflections. So it's nice. But if I only solely just saw it in him, I would become lost in him, right? I'd become starting to grab on and hold on, thinking like, oh, I could only get it through him. I could only see it through him. I have to see it in myself. We were in Switzerland visiting this church, just doing some sightseeing between talks. And it was also a Christian church. But they had this old part and then the new part of the church. And here I went to this old part, and they had these beautiful sort of paintings on the wall of the church. And I stood there, and I could not move. I was suddenly experiencing like no time, where there's past, present, and future was happening all at once, all at the same time. I could see it all. I could see the past, everything that was going on. And I stood there frozen. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And then I thought, well, okay, maybe I better go, because Eckhart's waiting for me. He kind of knows me by now. When I go into something, he just leaves me, which is really nice. He'll just sit and wait for me, because he knows I sometimes go into these different experiences. So I turned around, so I turned my body around, and I looked out there, and he's the only one out there. But I looked at the church, and I'm like, oh, I'm not ready. So I turned myself back around, and I'm like, oh, yeah, this is great. The timeless realm, this is wonderful. And then again, I turn around, because, some time passes, and I'm like, no, I'm not ready to go back out there. Then somebody else comes, and they're too frozen. They're just stuck there. And he mentioned this. He says, you guys were just standing there like looking at the wall. You're like, what were you looking at? And then, she was standing there a long time, but then she left. So I turned, I thought, okay, I better get going, because I don't know how long. It felt like a very long time I was standing there. So I turned around. I took a deep breath, and I walked down the 2 steps that I had to walk down to the new part of the church. And I'm like, oh God, I'm back in this realm. And then I sat down beside Eckhart, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I said, oh my God, no, I'm not. All I had to do was look at him, and I'm just in that timeless realm again. And I went, oh, home. That's home. And it's really nice to be able to find someone to reflect that back. And sometimes we can't find it. And that's okay. Because when we actually find it in ourselves and hold it, meaning maintain it in ourselves, so maintain that sort of, that feeling of, that sense of oneness, that hole in that flute, then we just see it. We look out and we see it. It's just there. It doesn't matter about the other person, whether they're in that realm or not. But it is really nice to meet somebody who else is in that realm. So, though I consider Eckhart my soulmate is really that hole in the flute. And he's just a reflection of that.